Well, Sembene is dead. Unsurprising, but fucking disappointing, because Penny Dreadful, I was rooting for you. And then you just had to go and fuck it up like all these other shows. Why do we always have to die? So before I rip Penny Dreadful a new one about killing of Sembene, I would like to first sing its praises for this season. Overall, I think this season has been stellar. I think that Eva Green is getting to fucking shine as Vanessa, and I can't see the show without her. As amazing as Billie Piper has been this season as Lily, it is Eva Green who carries this show. She's amazing. She's phenomenal. She is so good at doing what she's doing that I'm stunned by her. And I think the episode with the cut wife was one of my favorite episodes of any show I watched this season, period. It was well done, well acted, it was beautiful, had this great message. When you see the girl that the cut wife helped with the abortion be the person to burn her at the stake, I mean, that was just, it was an amazing fucking episode. And I think that it shows why I like this show so much. I think that the tension was amazing as usual. I think that it did really good. I think that, you know, they did really good things with Ethan's character. Finally, Victor's character is definitely a lot more obnoxious this season. I think his, you know, his molestation of Lily, aka Brona, and from murdering her last season, he's kind of just been on this steep, and I think at the end he got his comeuppance, which was good. I found myself really enjoying seeing him knocked down. But I like that he's still a complex character. I think that they do a good job at making every character complex, with the exception of one. We'll get back to that soon though. So I think they did a good job with him. Sir Malcolm definitely got a lot of really good stuff this season. His relationship with Miss Poole was really well done, and I loved her. I totally forgot that she's Narcissa Malfoy until someone pointed out. I'm like, you're right, I don't recognize her with that fucking skunk hair that she had in that movie, but I was like, yes, Narcissa Malfoy. She was amazing in this role, and just her subtle wickedness was amazing, and I just think that it was great seeing her play that role. I wish she was Elizabeth Bathory, but that's okay. It was still really amazing. I also, like, Lily was amazing. I think besides Eva Green's character of Vanessa, the two characters I really attached to this season were Lily and Angelique. Lily was amazing because she started off being very frustrating to watch, because you could see Victor taking advantage of her, and they were kind of making it seem romantic and like beautiful because he loved her. But then when you finally realize, when Lily had that speech when she was talking to like John Clare about like, you need to talk about this poetry bullshit, you think I don't know what's going on here, you fucking liars, and I'm just like, yes, Billie Piper, miss. I was really enjoying that, and I think that they really managed to capture a lot of her frustrations, because she was being used and manipulated. And you can say, well, Victor loved her. Victor killed her. Victor killed her and wanted to make her a sex slave to the most boring fucking creature on earth. So let's just get our priorities straight. Good job, Lily. And I think that John Clare, whatever, Caliban, whatever name he wants to go by, he's still boring as fuck. But him getting to hang out with Vanessa made him more interesting. The storyline with Lavinia and that family was not particularly interesting to me, because I get it. He's ugly. People are mean about it. I really don't care, because he's too much. I really feel that way about him. He's too much. And I think about it too, like, his disfiguration, it's not that bad. It's the Victorian era. Like, people is fucked up in all kinds of ways. I really don't feel like his deformity is as as palpable as it really would be in that time period. I mean, like, you're not as beautiful as like these noble people, but you go down in the streets, I mean, like, come on. And it's just a lot. I did also enjoy that Lavinia was also against him and actually was like, you're very fucking annoying. Everyone who called him annoying, that was a lady, I was like, work. Angelique actually made Dorian interesting, because Dorian is the most fucking boring person on the face of this show, and that's saying something, because he at least gets storylines, you know what I mean? He has no excuse to be boring, but he's fucking boring. And Angelique gave him some depth. I love their sex scenes weren't, you know, edited down or made less intimate. I love that Angelique was she was a really well written trans character. I like that she got, even though she died and that was frustrating, I did at least appreciate that she was made the maiden, you know, kind of ingenue, innocent type character, even though she was transgender and a prostitute. You know, usually characters who are, you know, labeled as deviant are not allowed to be this kind of purity, too good for these world characters, but she was, and that was really refreshing. Even though it ended in death, I at least appreciated how the motif was used for her character, so that was great. Dorian is just, he's fucking pointless. I mean, until Lily came, but that's the last 2 episodes. But that whole time, I'm like, so are you two gonna be like taking over the world? Something? I don't know. And I think my problem with Dorian is that, like, I think it's partly because of, like, historical reasons why I find his character so obnoxious, because, like, because of the actual history of Oscar Wilde, and Oscar Wilde is super interesting if you haven't looked it up, but it's because of all the drama surrounding Oscar Wilde and his character, who he was and what he was on trial for. I just feel like Dorian Gray is a male-leaning bisexual man, and I really like, and he's a power twink, and I really wish they would just do that and not always want to push him with women. They're very much pushing this whole woman thing, and it's very frustrating to me, because it seems like they're making Dorian into kind of like this pansexual, bored deviant, and that's not really who Dorian Gray is. I mean, like, he becomes that, but I think maybe because we've never seen Dorian, we don't really know the timeline. Like, how old is Dorian? You know what I mean? Like, is he the Dorian Gray that we know from the book in that sense? Because at least with Victor Frankenstein, like, yes, we know some sort of happens before, but we get a good sense of, like, where he is in this life. I really don't know about Dorian. I don't know if his sexuality is, you know, based on himself, or if it's based on him having lived so long, he's tried everything, like they do it usually in sci-fi, like, oh, I'm a vampire, I just fuck whoever because I've just been alive for so long, it doesn't even matter, which is different to me, and I think it means different things, and I would rarely, in the way that they tend to word Dorian's sexual proclivities tends to be kind of problematic. They make it seem like, oh, like, he's self-harming and all that kind of stuff. Like, they just make it seem like he's kind of just into it for the fetish and not for sexuality, which kind of brings it down for me, because that's not genuine to the character. If you just wanted to do that type of character, you shouldn't have named him Dorian Gray, because that's not all that Dorian is about. And there's just a lot of reasons that are English majory and really play no point in Penny Dreadful, but at the end of the day, he's boring as fuck, and I don't care for him. Hopefully Lily will make him interesting. He tends to be interesting when he's around other female characters, but we'll see. Yeah, Lily's arc was done bomb. Billie Piper has been amazing on the show. I'm really happy that she's got this role on it. Yeah, I liked all the satanic stuff. Like, I love witches, and I like, even though I find it can be sort of not just, I don't mind that they went like full witches or the lords or like the servants of Satan in this story. I think that in the universe that they've created, it makes sense. It wouldn't be what I would pick, but I think it makes sense for their world, and I'm okay with it. And I think that they did a really good job. I'm interested to see what Hecate does, and that she's, you know, head witch in charge. And I like the idea that, you know, so it's like Satan and the Dracula character are like brothers, and they're trying to get Vanessa, who's Amunet, and gotta catch them all. I don't know. We'll see. They have at least pretty much set in stone. Like, we know that that's Amunet. We know that Ethan is, you know, a werewolf, which we already knew, but we finally got to see him. He looks very, you know, like the kid from the Munsters. But I actually don't mind the like half man, half wolf, true wolf man sort of stylistic to me. Like, I wish there was more fur. Maybe they didn't want to do too much on his face to keep his beauty, but I do wish that there was more fur. I like that kind of, you know, very wolf man style, because that's what I think. Like, they call him a werewolf, but I think he's more wolf man than werewolf, and that's fine. It's gonna be interesting to see the America, because they set up a lot of really good stuff for the next season, so I'm very hopeful and optimistic, because I think this season has been overall, like I said, exemplary. But let's fucking talk about Sembene. Oh wait, talk about Lyle. I like Lyle. I think that some people think that he's a gay stereotype in a lot of ways, and I think that yes, he is very campy, but I do think they have given him depth in a lot of ways, especially in showing his confliction between Miss Poole and the main group. I think that, you know, being a camp gay character doesn't automatically make you bad. There are camp gay men, and I know that it's frustrating because there isn't much variety shown with gay men, but I think that that's also becoming less and less true. I think we're seeing much more variety in terms of gay men, especially in shows like Sense8, which is really good. And so I'm not going to be holding the campness against him. I think that they've done a good job of making him be his own person, having layers. There could definitely be more development, but I've seen some people who think that he's just a gay male stereotype, and I'm not a gay man, so I can't be definitive on it, but in my opinion, as bi, I don't really find his character to be purely stereotypical. I think there are layers to Lyle that I appreciate. Sembene. And it's funny because I remember when I saw the posters for the first season of Penny Dreadful, and I thought to myself, they're not gonna let this Negro do anything. And I was right. And then the second season came, and they still let the Negro do anything. And I really resent it. I resent it so much because he's presented as a main character, and he's not. He's the only character of the main cast to have no plot of his own. You know, Lyle has a plot of his own. Even Vanessa, Lily, John Clare, Malcolm, Ethan, everyone's got a plot of his own except Sembene. He is serving all the white people. That's what he does. And he's like a slave trader, so he has to be punished for it. Not Malcolm, who engages in colonization, and everyone else in this world who engages in colonization by existing in the goddamn Victorian era. But no, he has to be punished for it. Okay. It's so I was so bitter about it because a lot of people have been like saying like, "Well, you love Sembene, he's like one of the best male characters," and while I am happy, and I do also like Sembene, I do think that he had a lot of potential, but I find a lot of that disingenuous because like he doesn't do anything except be awesome to help other people. It's a lot like Mulan in Once Upon a Time. Like, she was awesome helping white people but not doing anything for herself, you see? And it's just like, it's the same thing here. Like, he never got to do anything for himself, and we never get to know anything. I mean, he dies for the white man, literally. The fuck. And it reminded me of something that I had read in this book, Culture and Imperialism by Edward Said. And he has this essay in here that you can look up online. I'll put a link down below, and also a link to the book itself if you're interested. But basically in this book he talks about colonization in different forms, and one of the things he talks about is literature in this chapter called Jane Austen and Empire. And I'm not going to read a bunch of it out, but one part that he says is that no cultural forms like the novel or the opera do cause people to go and imperialize. Carlyle did not drive roads directly, and he certainly cannot be blamed for the problems in today's southern Africa. But it is genuinely troubling to see how little Britain's great humanistic ideas, institutions, and monuments, which we still celebrate as having the power ahistorically to command our approval, how little they stand in the way of the accelerating imperial progress. That's how I feel about Penny Dreadful. I feel like it is a show that takes place in a period that is steeped in imperialism. And it's hinted at, you know what I mean? Like in the first season they talk a lot about Sir Malcolm in Africa. And even they bring in the American aspect of imperialism with Ethan and Native Americans. And the world of the Victorian era is so steeped in this, and it's still going on. Like, the British Empire is at its height during this period, and that's sort of ignored. And there was a black population of migrants in the Victorian era. There had always been. I mean, because people would go from the Americas, black authors and other intellectuals would go and escape slavery by going to London and going to these places. So London especially has been diverse forever. You know what I mean? Like, it's not booming. Like, it's not like, you know, Harlem or anything over there to be an equivalent, but it's like there are black people in this world, and there are black people affected by these things in this world, and there's a complete erasure of that, and a complete erasure of the responsibility and the implications of that in the narrative Penny Dreadful that are made even more apparent by Sembene being there, one. Because when you bring him in there, into the narrative, and you bring him as a main character, I expect you to address those things, you know? I do. Because you're a modern show. You know these things. You know the context of what's happening. You can do all this research and all this really great drama for all these characters, but you can't capture that, one. So I expect it to be addressed, one. And I expect you to, you know, for it to, I expect it to be a point, because one, he's there, and then two, I expect you to show what that means. And they have completely failed to do that. They mention colonization, they mention Sir Malcolm being a rapist, but that's it. And because there are no other black characters, and then you treat Sembene like a servant, make him completely serve out to the white characters, have no plot line, the only main character to have zero plot for himself. You participate in it then, as the writers. You do. And I love the writing on the show overall, but in this aspect, they do what Syed is saying in his book. They are participating in the imperialization by ignoring it and not letting it be a full part of it. And what he mentions in this book, because it's called Jane Austen, he mentions that because he brings up the book Mansfield Park, because in Mansfield Park, for those of you who never read it, one of the things that's brought up is that the head of the house, Sir Thomas, is in Antigua because his plantations in Antigua, their money is coming from Antigua, they are maintained by colonialism. And he brings up that Jane Austen may not be anti-slavery in a very overt way, but she makes it a statement about it by having the spaces that she discusses in Mansfield Park be negative when it's concerning stuff that has to do with slavery, and that the absence of Sir Thomas in the family, due to him being in these colonies, is causing a downfall in the system. So they are blaming and talking about the ills of imperialism in a British context, unfortunately, but they are discussing it, and that elevates that piece of literature because it steeps itself in that history and uses it to make a better product. He says, I don't want to read the whole thing, but precisely because Austen is so summary in one context, so provocatively rich in the other, precisely because of that imbalance, we are able to move in on the novel, revel and accentuate the interdependence scarcely mentioned in its brilliant pages. A lesser work wears its historical affiliation more plainly. Its worldliness is simple and direct. Penny Dreadful. That's how I feel. It mentions it, it's direct, but it is not embodying itself in the work. And I feel like by killing off Sembene, they left a really massive hole in that structure, that because they introduced it, and I think that if they never had Sembene as a character and build him as a main character, would I be like, there's no black people on the show? Yes, I would be upset about that, but it wouldn't be as big of a hole, because when you introduce him, I would expect that you know what you're doing when you're doing that. And because they didn't, because they made that massive hole, I'm upset. And I hope that they correct it in some way, and it'll be when we see Sir Malcolm land in Africa, because, you know, it's a whole country. Hopefully they'll start to correct some of these imbalances. Maybe get a woman of color somewhere up in there, you know, that would be nice. I could write something, I need a job anyway. But point is, I do definitely enjoy Penny Dreadful. This season has been overall amazing. Definitely one of my favorite shows on television before Sembene died. Now you're gonna go under Orphan Black, because Orphan Black, even though it was super slow this season, it did elevate itself. However, Killjoys has black people in it, so it's a little bit higher. I know they have art on Orphan Black, but really, is art there really? But anyway, Penny Dreadful, check it out. But again, big glaring imperialistic hole.